Good afternoon. We're getting right down to business here. Mottek On Money, live on the air, weekdays at 4, every weekday afternoon. We're on the air live right now on 790 KBC, streaming live online worldwide at kbc.com and the on-demand Mottek On Money podcast, kbc.com, Apple, iTunes, YouTube, all of your favorite podcast platforms. Stocks moving mostly lower today as trade talks between the U.S. and China set to start this weekend. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has traveled to Switzerland now. He started the week in Beverly Hills at the Milken Institute Global Conference, where we had that big opening session earlier this week. Secretary Bessent expected to meet with representative from China tomorrow about tariffs. All three of the major stock market averages ended the week a bit lower, just down about 0.5%. Today, the Dow pulled back 119 points after getting off to a positive start, settling at 41,249. The S&P 500 down 4 at 5,660. The NASDAQ closed higher, but by just a point at 17,929. The volatility index pulling back 2.5% today. Gold got a pop of $23 at $3,329 and change. It's been a big week for Bitcoin and other cryptos, including Ethereum. Ethereum all of a sudden back above 2,300. Bitcoin at the moment just shy of 103,000. Doge at the moment also moving higher this week, up 20 cents. President Trump made a new move today in his trade moves with China, saying that an 80% tariff on Chinese products seems right, in his words, but determining the correct level is up to Treasury Secretary Bessent this weekend. The president's latest comments on tariffs, which came out in a social media post today, coming just before the Secretary of Treasury Bessent and the Trade Representative Greer are set to meet in Switzerland with the Chinese counterparts for trade talks tomorrow. Markets focused on the U.S.-China trade talks in Geneva this weekend, following a rally on Thursday as the president unveiled the U.S.-UK trade agreement. The White House press secretary, Carolyn Leavitt, later told reporters today that President Trump threw out there, in her words, the 80% rate for tariffs on imports from China. Leavitt said no final rate would be set prior to the upcoming talks this weekend in Switzerland. We also heard today from the New York Fed President, John Williams, that there are new signs that consumers may be slowing their spending, which could mean slower economic growth ahead. In the words of the New York Fed President, John Williams, we are hearing more reports from businesses and others that consumers are starting to pare back some of that consumer spending, in his words. Hopes for a de-escalation in tariff tensions getting a lot of attention now. The de-escalation trade, is it on? We're going to talk about that in just a moment. As far as the cryptos go, Bitcoin rallied against the dollar amid the optimism today, trading above just, in fact, over 104,000 overnight. And on the earnings front, we did get some news from Pinterest, the social media site. That stock surged. Expedia moving lower after that online travel booking platform missed revenue estimates. Tesla having a good week this week, jumping again today, pushing their shares to the highest level seen since February. The Milken Institute Global Conference 2025 is wrapped up in Beverly Hills. I'll talk about it, and I'll talk about it with prominent economist Kevin KLOWDEN, Executive Director of the Milken Institute Finance. He'll be joining us this hour. Also this hour, prominent attorney Richard Sandler, author of the book, Witness to a Prosecution, The Myth of Michael Milken. Also former chair of the board of both the Jewish Federations of North America and the Jewish Federation of Greater Los Angeles. Also executive vice president of the Milken Family Foundation. Richard Sandler will be joining us later this hour. But first, on your money, the markets, the economy, tariffs, trade, de-escalation, crypto too. Joining us live now, Jonathan HOENIG, Fox News contributor, portfolio manager at Capitalist Pig Hedge Fund, author of the book Price is Primary, How to Profit with Any Asset in Any Market at Any Time. Good afternoon, Jonathan HOENIG.
Frank, well, it's great to be with you, and I couldn't help but notice a study out earlier today that 7 out of 10 Americans are reporting their highest financial stress ever. So there's lots of news and lots happening when it comes to the markets and people's money today.
Absolutely. Well, we have the right person on the line here to talk about it. And so looks like the market pulled back slightly, and a little bit of drama today on the tariff front heading into the weekend. Well, obviously, this is probably the biggest of all of the trade deals that we're going to be looking forward to here. Treasury Secretary Bessent basically said that when he spoke at the Milken Global Conference on Monday, and he's certainly been around this week. He's been all over the place, and now in Switzerland getting set for the big meeting tomorrow. What do you think is going to happen tomorrow, and how's the market setting up for whatever does happen?
Well, Frank, I got to tell you, this reminds me very much of a time back during the financial crisis when they had the so-called do not short list. They had a list of companies which they wouldn't permit people to sell short. And as soon as they were put on that list, they would, of course, skyrocket in price. It's hard to not be a little bit rattled these days as an investor when you consider just how volatile this market has been because of these trade uncertainties. I mean, we almost had a basically 15% round turn in April. Stocks sold off about 15, 18%. They've come back about 13, 14%. And that was all due, in my opinion, Frank, to the ever-changing tariff policy. So I think this is a difficult market to invest in. It's being driven almost exclusively by news not out of Wall Street, but out of Washington, D.C. And I think it's why, ironically, despite the fact you have markets all over the world hitting new highs, you almost have to have some cash on the sidelines given how much uncertainty the government itself brings to today's market environment.
So now I want to talk about this de-escalation trade. De-escalation seems to be the word of the day. Hopes for de-escalation and the tariff tensions getting a boost today. President Trump tweeting out or Xing out or on his social media platform said many trade deals in the hopper, all good, parentheses, great ones. He put that out today, and President Trump flat out recommended stocks too this week.
I know, and that's pretty unusual to see that, Frank. I mean, the president is active in a lot of investment opportunities, it seems. I'll tell you what areas of stocks interested me, and I don't know if this is what the president is referring to, but, small cap stocks, Frank, have been completely forgotten about. They have underperformed now for 15 years. I mean, and Frank, considering you've only been in the business 15 years now. You probably don't even remember a time. Small cap stocks have been forgotten about. So DFIS is one I really like right now. This is an international index of small cap stocks, and it's starting to break out, Frank. And at a time when no one is really talking about it, not a lot of attention about it. So the president might be right. There could be stock opportunities out there. I just think they're not going to be those usual names. The Facebooks and the Metas and the Nvidias of our age. It's going to be these new names like small caps, I think, that are going to be the next big market. And DFIS is one that we own over at capitalispig.com.
That is very interesting. And, of course, small cap stocks will be very sensitive if there's a downturn in the economy or if things go cattywampus with the tariff situation. So we're going to keep a close watch on that. We certainly want to stand tall for small here in small business. So thanks for highlighting that. That is something that's going to be very, very important. And, certainly the volatility index pulled back slightly today, but volatility is also the order of the day here, right? So are you placing your bets on more volatility?
Well, I think it's almost inevitable. And unfortunately, I think it's also avoidable. And Frank, in a free market, people can make plans. They can think long term. And the president, with all respect, I think has some chutzpah as he picks these numbers. Is it 80%? Is it 60%? Is it 30%? I mean, if you're in business, even if you run a lemonade stand, you understand that an extra % or two of margin is huge, and people work a lot of money to make these margins. I mean, there's entire businesses, Frank, whose business model is importing items from China or Vietnam or anywhere else. So I think what the market more than anything needs is visibility here. And the president not only, I think, taking taxation power from the legislative branch, but now giving it to Scott Bessent to say, well, let Scott figure it out. I mean, this is transactions amounting to hundreds of billions of dollars every year, and business can't make any plans long term while business is conducted by the president in such a manner, in my opinion.
And it's already having an impact at the ports. We've been hearing from the Port of L.A. director as well as the Port of Long Beach director. The activity at the ports has trickled to a very low level, not seen since the COVID days. And according to the Long Beach port director, it might even be worse than the COVID pandemic days when the whole global economy was shut down. We're watching, obviously, this is going to be a very important meeting on U.S.-China trade this weekend, which impacts the ports here. And what about the shipping stocks and some other things that may be impacted by all this?
Well, so the president seemed to be happy about this, about the reduced shipment of trade. I feel just very much the opposite. I mean, busy, active ports. Imports are a sign of a healthy, wealthy economy, Frank. And ironically, I think you actually can look at a shipping stock here. Danos Shipping, ticker symbol is DAC, was breaking out late today. So, where I'm always looking at that, scanning the market, looking for stocks that are doing well that you wouldn't think would be doing well. So you always want to do your own due diligence, but Danos Shipping, DAC, is, I think, definitely one people might be surprised about how far it could go.
All right, we're watching the dollar, too, and price of gold, of course, recently hit an all-time high a month or so ago, right now hovering at around 3,300, and then there's crypto, too. Bitcoin has roared to life this week, getting closer to its all-time high, right now hovering at around 103,000. It was above 104,000 earlier. And Ethereum, which really took a beating, has rebounded all the way up to 2,300 or so here now. And even good old Doge is back to 20 cents. What are your thoughts here on analog gold, digital gold, and the dollar at this point?
Strong strength begets more strength. And I've been, start specifically with gold. I mean, Frank, these markets have all the time in the world. Gold could lollygag around for 6 months, for 8 months, for 12 months, for 18 months, and then shoot up to $4,500 an ounce. But you've got to respect that strength begets strength. One area that I know I've mentioned before, and the move hasn't happened yet, but I've been very bullish on platinum, and ticker symbol PPLT is how I'm playing it over at capitalispig.com. You always want to do your own due diligence, but, platinum is 30 times more rare than gold, and it's trading at half the price it did some 12 years ago. So platinum is used in things like catalytic converters or diabetic test strips, a lot of different industrial uses for it. And I think as a metal, it's quite cheap. So that's one I'm bullish on. And again, do your own due diligence, but PPLT is breaking out with platinum's first closed above $1,000 an ounce in many months.
Very interesting, and you don't hear too much about platinum, which could also be telling when things are not talked about. That's when people ignore it, and of course, when things are making new highs, that's when people, just human nature, I guess, rush into it, as we've seen with gold here recently.
Yeah, I mean, there's a great line, Frank. People, you want to be long doubt and short hope. Meaning, people doubt an investment. They say, oh, well, that's boring. That can't go any higher. That's foolish. And, we've seen that very much in the first quarter of this year so far. I mean, the S&P is one of the worst performing markets worldwide. You've got markets like Italy, for example, up 20-some% this year. Poland is up 30-some% this year. The German DAX is up 15-18% this year. So this has been a great year, despite the kind of buy American and pro-American philosophy of the president. This has been a great year to invest in international stocks and international bonds. You asked about the movement for the dollar, and again, these are big markets that take time, but I still think that preferencing both international stocks and international bonds, and this could be a year in which the dollar weakness doesn't just start off, but it continues to trend throughout the remaining months.
All right. What about bonds? Also getting a lot of attention, and we've seen some pretty dramatic moves in the usually boring bond market, which we don't always talk about because, quite frankly, it is quite boring. But what do you see in the bond market here?
I would be frightened to hold long-term bonds here, Frank. I mean, there doesn't seem to be, maybe ex-Rand Paul, any actual deficit hawks on Capitol Hill. You used to be able to rely on the Republicans as being small government and smaller spending, but at best we're getting maybe a cut in the rate of spending. And with respect to Elon Musk, who I think is an amazing entrepreneur and innovator, Doge, there's no more talk of a $6,000 per person Doge check anymore. I mean, that's just gone out the windows. It's been seen that he's not cutting trillions, not even really hundreds of millions, maybe a couple millions, which is great, but really no sign of government spending. So it's hard to buy a 30-year government bond, Frank, from the United States, given the fact that we continue to spend like true drunken sailors. So one of the reasons I think that the U.S. dollar is going down, and I think you're likely to see U.S. yields go up, that is, bond prices go down as a result.
We did hear from Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA this week, also here in Beverly Hills at the conference, and then a pretty big bump in the stock the following day. NVIDIA, the Magnificent One, is back up to 116 and change, pulled back slightly today. What are your thoughts about NVIDIA here now, the Magnificent One, and the other Mag 7 names?
Actor Michael Rosenbaum, he knows some of the most talented people in the business.
Let's get inside of Jack Osbourne.
Bands would say Black Sabbath was a huge influence.
And thank God you liked it, boy.
Yeah.
Elijah Wood.
Peter gets on the phone. Elijah, would you like to play the role of Frodo?
Did you cry?
Probably screamed at the top of my lungs.
You play iconic characters, Black Canary and Black Siren. Who would you choose?
Probably Black Siren. She's like, I got this. And that's how Katie Cassidy feels. She's got this.
I like that.
The Inside of You podcast. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Well, look, great companies and companies that have changed our life. I mean, even, Frank, some of your listeners who might not be in markets or might not be in business necessarily use AI on a daily basis. So, let's just appreciate these companies for coming up with these amazing inventions that better our lives. NVIDIA, nice bump, but still down about 15% year to date. And I think it's one of these names, Frank, that ironically, even as it makes more money, is going to struggle to grow into a valuation, which by every measure had gotten extraordinarily extended. And that's exactly what happened, for example, to Cisco Systems, which was kind of like the NVIDIA back in the late 1990s. The company makes more money now than it did in 1999, but it still trades below where it did in 1999 because back then it traded at hundreds of times earnings. So I think NVIDIA is a fantastic company, but it's not where I'd want to be putting money. I'd rather be putting money right now in something like Italy, for example, EWI. That's the ticker symbol tracking the iShares Italy. Italian stocks, Frank, they're not trading at 30, 40, 50 times earnings. They're trading at like 12 times earnings. So strong on the charts and cheap for the fundamentals. That's where I'm putting my clients' money to work.
All right, terrific. And what about Tesla? Also rebounding impressively lately after that earnings call with Elon Musk on it, saying that Elon Musk is getting set to step away from the Doge effort and focus on Tesla once again. Since then, the stock is up close to $300 a share once again here.
I mean, really incredible volatility. I mean, you asked about Bitcoin as well, Frank, too. And I have to say, I'm kind of gobsmacked that Bitcoin and Ether are once again looking to re-challenge those all-time highs. You're always surprised, even after doing this for, 30 plus years at how markets move. And Tesla is very much the same thing. You have a asset that's at once down 21% year to date, but up 73% still in the last year, even given the dramatic loss. I mean, since the early part of 2025, Tesla is still down about 35%. So it's not a trend that I would take now, Frank, in terms of putting new money to work, but I don't think you bet against it. I think, as once ultimately Elon does step away from Doge on a full-time basis, you're likely to get another pop out of Tesla, at least, the very least at that as well. So Tesla is a wonderful company. I don't think you fight it, but I think there's more exciting places to put money to work that people aren't talking about right now. I mentioned small caps. There's an absolute return vehicle that I like quite a bit, which is CSHI, which is relatively small risk, but market enhanced return, CSHI. Do your own due diligence on that one. Because, boy, Frank, it's a long year. There's a long year. We're still going to see plenty of unease, plenty of questions about Fed maneuvers and earnings. So it's okay to have some dry powder given all the uncertainty in the economy right now.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, what do you think about cash?
I think cash is never trash, Frank, given the unfortunate reality of so many Americans' bottom lines. I mean, Frank, Americans are dipping into their 401ks. They're holding and extending credit card loans and taking out longer term now seven-year credit card loans or 7-year loans when it comes to cars. So, take this opportunity to shore up your own balance sheet. And Frank, we both remember a time in 2008 and 2009 when, the old adage back then was, can you believe it? MBAs are waiting tables. MBAs are waiting. That's how bad it is. And we thankfully haven't reached that point, and I hope we don't. But, I think it's a great opportunity, given the market has rebounded pretty dramatically since April's lows, to take this opportunity and build yourself a moat. Make sure that you've got that 3 months worth of living expenses, that you've got your credit card paid down. If you can accomplish that, you're better off than 50, 60, 7% of most Americans. So take this opportunity for the huge rebound in stocks and build yourself a moat, because uncertainty isn't just a possibility, it's a certainty for 2025.
Very well said, and that what you started out with that 7 out of 10, feeling pretty bad at the moment, that is pretty significant. Tell us, you have any other details on that survey that you mentioned?
Well, it's featured at Drudge right now, and it's pretty telling when you ask people, how are you doing? What's your how are you? Is now good? Is now bad? 7 out of 10 are reporting peak financial stress. This is a talker research on demand. They talk to people. They said, in fact, 40% of respondents have skipped work or skipped school to focus on their financial mental health. So it's getting that bad, Frank, that, people are really starting to worry. So I'm never a Cassandra. I would never bet against this country or bet against any American, but it's a great opportunity, I think, given the strength in stocks, to put yourself on a firm financial footing, and especially when it comes to having that credit card debt, Frank. There's no use in trying to make 10 or 12 or 15% in stocks while you're giving Visa or MasterCard 22 or 24% month after month after month. So take that opportunity to get that under control, and you can accomplish that. Pat yourself on the back.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for telling it like it is, and that's what we do here, the good, the bad, and the ugly, laying it out on the line as it happens here on a daily basis. Jonathan, thank you very much for taking the call. It was great seeing some of your Fox News and Fox Business colleagues here in Beverly Hills this week, and hope to see you out here sometime soon as well. Jonathan HOENIG, Fox News contributor, portfolio manager at Capitalist Pig Hedge Fund, and author of the book Price is Primary, How to Profit with Any Asset in Any Market at Any Time. Jonathan, thanks again, and we wish you a great weekend.
My best to you. Thank you again, Frank.
Thank you very much. And out to the freeways now, gorgeous afternoon here on 790 KABC. Mottek On Money continues here on 790 KABC. It's not unusual to have volatility. Got inspired by that Tom Jones music a moment ago here. The Dow did close down 119 points today to settle at 41,249. The S&P 500 down 4 at 5,660. Both had started the day higher. The NASDAQ managed to hold on to a closing gain of just a point, 17,929. The volatility index moving lower today, down about 2%. Gold moving higher, up more than $23 at $3,329 and change. We did see oil move up $1.15 today, back to $61.06. Cryptos, quite a week. Bitcoin right now hovering just below 103,000. Ethereum got a big pop this week, back to 2,300. And I'm looking at Doge at the moment here at 20 cents. Shares of NVIDIA had a pretty good week, pulling back a bit today, down 72 cents, back to 116 and change. Tesla had a big week, more than $13 today to $298 and change, getting closer to $300. And it looks like Apple moved higher today as well, up $1.04 at $198.53. Platinum, mentioned earlier, back above 1,000 for the first time in a while, moving up more than $20 today, up $20.60 to $1,000.10 an ounce for platinum. And silver moving higher, up 26 cents at $32.88 an ounce. Markets focused on the U.S.-China trade talks set to begin in Geneva tomorrow. And we're waiting to see what's going to happen there. Obviously, that's going to be a big event heading into the new week. Right now, let's get the latest news here on 790 KABC. Mottek On Money continues in 790 KABC, coming to you from the Milken Institute Global Conference 2025, packed with great sessions and all kinds of very interesting information, really mind-blowing in many cases. The front row seat to all this, economist Kevin KLOWDEN is with us, director of Milken Institute Finance. Kevin KLOWDEN, wonderful to see you here.
Great to see you as always, Frank.
A lot to take in. What's been the highlight for you so far?
I think the highlight is there isn't a specific highlight because there's been so much activity. There's so many things going on. News is being made while we're at this conference. One of the issues I'm actually tackling on the entertainment industry, and of course, President Trump sent out his tweet over the weekend talking about tariffs on foreign movies, and now Hollywood's reacting to that. We have all sorts of moves going on in terms of the markets. We've got, we had Treasury Secretary Bessent speaking earlier on. We had the CEO of NVIDIA, great speech. We had former First Lady Jill Biden, who was speaking about health initiatives that we're working on. We've had a number of different key people talking about everything from the changing investment climate to the impacts of tariffs to dealing with the impact of AI. And so in many ways, this feels like we are both incredibly lucky in that the way the world is makes so much of this very timely. In the other ways, sort of unlucky because there's so many different things to deal with and absorb.
And the world's attention focused on Los Angeles as well, with the firestorm recovery continuing. Give us your assessment here. You're very closely watching this unfold. Your reaction to how this recovery is going.
Well, in some aspects, we've gotten better collaboration and cooperation than we might have expected. The Army Corps of Engineers has actually been very cooperative in helping to pull things out in terms of cleaning up the sites. We've seen a tremendous amount of community resilience and stepping forward. The problem that everybody's running into, the incredible level of frustration, is that we're waking up to the fact that California is an incredibly hard place to build in, which means that even rebuilding is really hard. And so, in the conversations you're having outside of the conference, the conversations you have even had inside the conference, everybody is articulating and talking about how they want to do something, how they really consider this important, because they recognize that it's not just the Palisades and Altadena, that it's going to be somewhere else around greater Los Angeles, around Southern California. We thought when the Paradise Fire happened that, hey, that's a thing where it's a town right in the edge of a fire zone that's more rural. And we realized, of course, is that if things get hot enough and dry enough, then it doesn't really matter where you are, because homes become the fuel. And we need to recognize that in rebuilding, we need to be able to make these homes sustainable and insurable. We need to be able to get them up quickly. We need to be able to get them up in these revised codes and these new standards. And it's a lot of different things to tackle at once.
And now a big effort underway, led by Rick Caruso. Steadfast LA is the name of it. He's really become very outspoken, as we just heard, on current leadership, and really wants to get this recovery accelerated, bringing together the public and private sector. What's your assessment of this effort?
Well, I think his effort is actually really important. He obviously is particularly invested in the Palisades. One of the things that's noteworthy is that he actually, when he saw the fires coming, made a conscious effort to try and bring in his own contractors with fire retardant to try and preserve as many buildings around his shopping village that he could. And in fact, some of the areas that survived the best in the Palisades were in part due to his efforts. So he's clearly invested and interested in it. I mean, even where he lives wasn't that far away, and he clearly does care about that, and it takes it personally. The catch is that as impressive as he is, in some ways, he's running into the fact that he's better empowered in the private sector than he would be even as mayor. One of the things, I had a conversation a number of years ago with Dick Reardon when he had stopped being mayor, and he was talking about the recovery after the Rodney King riots and the number of different actions and his frustrations with the limited powers of being mayor and the bureaucracy.
Former MLB All-Star Sean Casey, a.k.a. The Mayor, keeps hitting it out of the park.
I don't need to hear anything from anybody. There's too much riding on my mind being locked in. Play offense, not defense. If you play hard hard and you play the game right, nobody really gets on you. They're going to boo you here and there, but if you show them that you care and that you're playing hard, that's what you need to do. Just play the game one way. You hit a ball in the gap, run. Boom, coming in hot.
The Mayor's Office with Sean Casey from Believe.
Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
And he had a number of different stories I won't go into, but he was extremely aware that a lot of the ability and the authority he had came from his influence and role in the private sector and some of his business side acumen. You know, what we've seen with Mayor Bass, that, you know, she made some very decisive moves on homelessness. She got a number of activities going that where things had not been happening before she stepped in, but she understood a certain amount of government and how government can work. The problem is that the mayor's office in Los Angeles is not that powerful. And we talk about it. We're very proud of our mayor. We're very proud of these ability. But we have a city charter that we set up decades ago that delegates a huge, huge amount of power to the various city council members, and then we added on to it the neighborhood councils. And so you've got a situation where you need the city to lead, absolutely, and you need the mayor to lead, but you need the city council fully on board, you need the county on board, and you need the private sector working together. If we can't collaborate all of these different groups, including foundations, including the state, including revising building codes, expediting processes, creating better mechanisms for working with insurance companies in a pragmatic way, then it's going to take far longer than many of these families have. They don't have the time or the patience. They can't live in rental housing, in smaller rental housing, or away from their communities with their children for years or decades.
Economist Kevin KLOWDEN, Director of Milken Institute Finance. It's been a magnificent experience here, Kevin, with you and your team. Thank you very much for joining us here from the conference here on Mottek On Money on 790 KBC.
Thanks to everyone, and thanks to you, Frank, and I hope you had a wonderful conference, and I hope everybody else look online and see the videos.
Thank you very, very much. Mottek On Money continues here in 790 KBC, coming to you from the Milken Institute Global Conference 2025 in Beverly Hills. Honored to say I'm with Richard Sandler, who wrote the book Witness to a Prosecution, The Myth of Michael Milken. Mr. Sandler, thank you very much for joining us here, and you did a special forum on the book and had a book signing here. Tell us about Michael Milken as we should know him here.
Well, thank you, Frank. Look, I wrote the book because I was tired of the lies being told so many years about who Mike is and what he did and didn't do in the past. And I lived it. And I'm the only person that's written about it that actually knew something and knows the individuals. And it is the accurate, factual account based on court records, based upon conversations with prosecutors about what really happened and really how unfair it was at the time.
Tell us, historically speaking, of course, Michael Milken now revered as someone who revolutionized the world of finance. Tell us how all of this has evolved.
So, look, Mike was a disruptor. We all know what happens to disruptors. Today we have disruptors such as Mark Zuckerberg and even Elon Musk and certainly Bill Gates. They've come in and they've disrupted what was being done. They've taken us to a new time because times change. Mike did that in finance. He financed companies that had never been financed before. He did it with a bond that was not necessarily rated as high as bonds had been rated before, but they turned out to be very valuable, and these companies ended up employing hundreds of thousands of people. But he came within the crosshairs of a prosecutor, a very ambitious prosecutor, Rudy Giuliani, who had political ambitions back in the 1980s. And he went through a very difficult time. What I write about in the book is how difficult the process is, where all the power rests in prosecutors to bring cases, and how people under investigation have absolutely no rights until after they've been indicted, and everybody assumes they're already guilty.
Tremendous challenge, legal challenge at that time, and you were up for the challenge. Did you have a great legal team to support you at the time?
We had a fantastic team. We had Edward Bennett Williams, who was probably the top defense lawyer at the time. Unfortunately, Ed died very early in the process from cancer. We had Arthur Lyman, also a blessed memory, who was one of the driving forces behind the Paul Weiss firm. So we had a great legal team. But no matter how good your team is, the power's in the prosecutor. It's not in the defense.
And indeed, Michael Milken himself overcame a diagnosis of terminal cancer, right? And then went on to fund cancer research and also overcame tremendous personal challenges.
Mike has an unbelievable ability to want to make the world better. And no matter what happens to him, you kick him in the stomach, you knock him down, you indict him, okay? Whatever it is, he gets cancer. He gets up, he dusts himself off, and he tries to figure out, how can I be more productive? How can I make the world better? How can I face the challenges before me? And he does it without bitterness. And it's why he has been so successful, and it's why there's going to be close to 5,000 people coming through this hotel from every country in the world, leaders of the government, leaders of their companies, leaders of industry, of education, of health. They're all here because of what this man has done and continues to try to do to make the world a better place.
What an honor it is to be part of this and to witness this. And what makes him do this? I mean, to bring the world together like this, like no other person that I know of could possibly do. Basically, the Davos of Beverly Hills, it's been called, and what a gathering here, and what a tremendous boost indeed to the whole economy here.
Yeah, well, I'm sure the city of Beverly Hills and this hotel are really excited that we're here, and we keep doing this every year. Look, it makes a difference, but we bring people together who really are experts to talk about what are the problems that face our country, our society, and our world. And they're here, we're kicking around ideas, and, people go home with a different view of things, and hopefully we will continue to make progress in really attacking some of these issues. We've been very successful in what we've done in the areas of health. I think we help with finance, and, we're trying to tackle problems every day.
And following our previous conversations about your book, Witness to a Prosecution, The Myth of Michael Milken, many attorneys contacted me, and of course, there are a lot of lessons to be learned here. What is your message to the legal world and the business people who are tuned into this?
I think for people that are interested in the history of finance and who Mike is, I lay it out. I lay it out very clearly in the book, but I really think that today there's a tremendous focus upon the prosecutorial process and the power of the prosecutor and how it can be used or weaponized, as many have said, for political reasons. And we have seen that quite a bit in the recent past. And what I lay out in the book is exactly what we face, which is no different than others are facing today. So I would hope that people in reading the book could realize, number one, this could happen to me. Okay, what happened to Mike, it happened to me because of the powers. And then maybe when they read in the papers about somebody they like or someone they dislike being prosecuted, they could step back and say, well, wait a minute, how should the system operate? Is it fair? How do I know this person's really guilty?
Attorney Richard Sandler, the book is Witness to a Prosecution, The Myth of Michael Milken. Thank you very much for joining us here from the Milken Institute Global Conference 2025 here on Mottek On Money on 790 KBC.
Thank you very much, Frank. Always enjoy our time together.
No Contest Wrestling, O'Shea Jackson Jr. and TJ Jefferson with the biggest names in the game.
Give it up for the Dark Angel.
First one.
First.
I can believe it.
NXT double champion. Welcome to King, Lexus King.
I don't know if I'd be where I'm at now if I didn't take the path that I took.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jada Parker.
What made you, after the soccer career, go WWE?
The answer I always have to that is like, why not?
The No Contest Wrestling Podcast, part of the Rich Eisen Podcast Network. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.